For those that are looking for a great hedging plant or something that's just a little bit lower with a little sense of formality for their gardens, why not consider something like the Acmena Allyn Magic? This is a plant that's been around for many years now, and yet is still trying to catch on in popularity in people's gardens. The green form here grows to about 80 centimeters tall and can be hedged and clipped quite beautifully. But this new variety called Minnie Magic has the most delightful foliage of different colors of cream and green and copper. Really quite a beautiful plant and really nice to use together. So if you're looking for a nice small hedging plant in place of things such as English buxus, which is not that overly suitable for southeast Queensland, this really has to be the answer. And the best thing about it, it's a native that you can have in your garden.
Well, greetings orchid lovers, and welcome to the wonderful world of growing orchids. It pretty much starts off here with a toothpick. We're going to take the pollen out of one flower to make another flower produce a seed pod, which is going to give us little seedlings. So there's our piece of pollen on the end of the toothpick. We're going to put it under the stamen of the other flower. And as you can see under there, there's the pollen from this flower onto this flower, and this flower here will produce a seed pod, which is going to give us many, many seeds. There's about 1 million seeds to every cubic centimetre in a seed pod, so in nature it takes lots and lots of seeds to find that special place to germinate without being attacked by fungus or problems. So many, many seeds. It's just like talcum powder. Once that seed pod has matured, which takes about 12 months, we then germinate that seed into a glass flask which has an agar gel full of protein to make those little seedlings grow up into little tiny plants. So there you have it, a nice little healthy orchid flask there. We then take it into our potting shed and we take the plants out of that flask and we put them into a little 2-inch tube. So there's a little seedling planted in a nice little tube. It stays in that tube for a further 12 months. From then it grows up a little bit bigger. It has now produced a brand new pseudobulb, a little cane as we call it, and that'll stay in that tube for 12 months until it's big enough that it goes in to that size plant, which is now an 80mm pot or an 8 centimetre pot. At that stage it then goes out into the true UV light protected by shade cloth. It stays in that pot, you guessed it, another 12 months. It then grows up to a plant to that size in 12 months. This is now a 110mm pot and it stays in there, I hope you're counting, another 12 months. We then take it and put it into a 140mm pot, is now a near flowering size plant. So it stays in there for another 12 months, possibly 2 years depending on the cross. This particular one is producing a flower sheath as we speak. So inside that little flower sheath, a little bud's starting to form, and that'll grow up to be a flowering orchid. Now that process from toothpick to flowering size plant, that process can take 7 years. From when we did the pollination with the toothpick exchanging the pollens to the stamen, here's an example of a little flower here. You can see that the flowers died off and now the back of the stem is starting to swell, and that's starting to produce its first signs of a seed pod. This one here, we've actually pollinated 4 different flowers onto the one plant here, so we've got a Christmas decoration effect of 4 seed pods. An example here of a slightly bigger cattleya. That'll hold probably 4 to 5 million seeds in there. Not that we want that many, but just a few nice ones would be really good. What we're going to do now is we're going to deflask an orchid. So we've produced a seed pod, we've sent it off to the lab, it's now come back, and we're now going to take the little plants out of the flask as we saw before, and that's pretty much done by getting a hose and literally hosing them out. we're just going to kind of melt the gel that's in there and literally wash the plants out of the flask. So we've got all of our little plants there. I'm just going to hose the gel off now. We treat them rough, don't be gentle, we treat them rough. Now we've got all of our little plants. We're now going to dip them in a solution of an anti-transparent to stop the plants losing moisture. Just in a bit of shade cloth with a bucket of the anti-transparent there. All of our seedlings in there, we give them a good old slosh around. While they're having a bit of a soak there, what we'll do now is we'll get a sheet of newspaper, open it out, put it in a tray. Simple as that. We've had our plants soaking there for a couple of minutes now. Just in a bit of shade cloth to pull them out like that. Tip them out on the tray and we just gently spread them around. We're going to let them dry out now. So what happens now is we've got our little plants there. They've got very, very soft roots, almost opaque. We're going to put them on the sheet of newspaper. We're going to keep them just misted so they don't completely dry out, and we're going to let those little roots harden up so they go nice hard little roots in that little plant there. So we're going to leave those sit overnight and then we'll plant those in a little 2-inch tube in the morning. We're now going to pot up these little gems. This is some we prepared earlier. We're going to now pot these little guys up into a 2-inch tube. So we simply take a nice plant, grab a little tube, bit of mix in the bottom, put the plant in. We've hardened the roots up overnight, and that's our first little guy in his new little home. He's got a long way to go before he's going to flower, but there you go. Pot it up to 2-inch tube. Moving on to the next stage now, from the 50mm tube, we now go up. It's been growing in here now for a further 12 months, up to an 80mm pot, and we're now under pure UV light from the sun being filtered through about 50% shade cloth, and it's going to grow up to be that big in 12 months time. We're going to keep it in that pot, and then after 12 months it will now grow to that size pot. This little fella's even got a sheath very early. There's no buds and areas yet, so it may not be strong enough to produce a flower, but as you can see, some of the plants will flower that 12 months earlier. So from this size plant now, it'll stay in there for 12 months, and we'll pot that up now to a 140mm pot, and it'll stay in there for a further 12 months.